You're live.
Good evening and welcome to the Summers County Board of Education special meeting at Summers County Memorial Building. It is July the 28th, 2021, and it is 6 p.m. This is a special call meeting because of need to hire numerous personnel and to issue contracts in a timely manner. Item 1, roll call. Let the minutes reflect that all 5 board members are present in the meeting. Item 2, invocation and pledge. Mr. Angel, would you do that for us, please?
Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening thankful, Lord, for the many blessings you give us. Lord, we thank you for each person that's here to make these decisions for our students and our staff in Summers County Schools. Lord, we thank you for our staff and our board members. Lord, we thank you most of all for our students. We pray that you'll give us the wisdom that we need as we go through the agenda items and help us to make the right decisions for our staff and our students and for Summers County Schools. We ask these things in Jesus' name, amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, approval of agenda and adjustments. Anyone have any requests for adjustments?
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as read.
my second.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Brogan, second by Mr. Angel, that this board approve the agenda as issued to us by the superintendent on July 28, 2021. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, 5 votes in affirmative. The agenda was approved. That brings us to item 4, personnel items. And subject to 6-9A-4, subparagraph 2 on personnel, the chair moves that this board go into executive session at this time.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor of the chair, second by Vice President Farley, this board go into executive session. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining. 5 votes in affirmative. We'll be going to executive session. We'll let you all know.
We're live.
The time is 6:41 PM. The chair calls this meeting back to order, coming out of executive session on personnel issues. And so at this time, on personnel, all members you have in front of you, a front and back sheet listing on personnel. I'm going to go through the topics real quick, and then we will take these and vote on these all at one time. Any objections? Okay. We have under resignation retirement, we have Riley Yoder, Amy Miller. That's under professional. Resignation retirement service personnel, Ruth Gill. Resignation extracurricular, Jared Ewing, assistant middle school basketball coach. We have employment professional, Brianna Bailey, second grade Talcott. Brianna Medley, first grade Hinton area. Hannah Kinsey, fifth grade Hinton area. Caitlin Workman, first grade Jumping Branch Elementary. Samantha Jones, multi-categorical, special education. And these are all TIRs and ACE program. Turning over to the back, you have Jessie Medley, multi-categorical, special education. Crystal Richmond, pre-K special needs, specialist teacher. Is it Therese Waldron, science teacher? Going down to transfer professional, we have Tucker Ford, 2 Title I at Talcott Elementary. We have Sydney Jordan, 2 Talcott Title I Elementary. Employment service, we have Jerry Schaefer, custodian, Summers County Schools. Dropping down to the last, employment extracurricular professional, Kathy Blevins, assistant AD, Summers County Comprehensive High School. Okay. The chair would move that this board approve the hiring, resignation, transfers, etc. of all these personnel as recommended to us by the superintendent. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor of the chair, seconded by Mr. McBride, that this board approve the recommendations of the superintendent as they have been posted on the agenda, and all of these were previously read. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. Let the minutes reflect the 5 votes in affirmative, Superintendent Warble. Your recommendations have been approved at this board regarding personnel. That brings us down to amendment to the CEFP. And Superintendent Warble, I'm going to ask you to explain to the board and the public that's listening the reason why we had to amend the CEFP, and so take it over.
Well, in short, the CEFP is a 10-year plan that has to be done every decade. When I came on, this plan was pretty much ready to go. It just needed to be approved by you all in the State Department. At that point in time, we did not have any pandemic talk with all the money that has come down to the states. Since we are receiving money and we presented to the state on May 28th, one thing that we found out was we need to make amendments if we'd like to make renovations to 2 areas we talked about. One was Talcott Gymnasium. To renovate Talcott Gymnasium and to use those monies, we have to actually put in our CEFP an amendment and go through that proper paperwork. So that's that entity. The other entity is Hinton Area Elementary. That gymnasium is used quite a bit, and it doesn't get used as much as I would like to see for a classroom. And so what we'd like to do, instead of building onto that property with the gymnasium and keeping that a cafeteria, let's keep the gymnasium and add on and make a little more room with a cafeteria. So those 2 items were not in the original CEFP. Now, some items in the CEFP are in there, like replacing windows or doors. Well, you don't have to amend that because you can use that money to do that kind of work. So having said that, we are presenting to you, Mr. Lester will present to you what we're doing with that money. I know we presented to you about what we're gonna do with the money, but now we have to show you our current CFP, and then Ken has a good way of plugging things in so you guys understand what's going on. If you have any questions, please ask. But I will say this much before Ken begins. If you all approve this tonight, today is the deadline also for the State Department, so we can get on their board agenda so they can approve it in August. So I know you guys don't necessarily like that. I don't either, but if we want to get things rolling, we got a lot of projects to do. And Summers County, instead of Summers County school system, it might say UC for under construction Summers County schools, because that means every facility is going to be worked on this school year to improve air quality and spacing, and educational environment will be spread out a little bit more. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lester to give you guys a presentation.
Before you start, Mr. Lester, it seems if I'm understanding this, and for everybody that's listening, we have made moves here that were recommended moves by the State Department of Education, State Board of Education. So it's just, in one way, this is routine because we've been directed to do this by the State Board of Education. Okay, Mr. Lester.
Yep.
So we put out and went for a presentation for our ARP funding, American Rescue Plan, to the State Department. State Department responded back with some action items. One of the action items was we needed to update our CEFP plan to match the ARP funding, as well as get public comment on the ARP funding. So the CEFP does not have to be put up for public comment, but the ARP funding it's been up for 2 weeks now with a comment section. We have received no comments on the ARP funding presentation that you guys saw 2 weeks ago. So with that said, moving forward, this is a 10-year CEFP that you guys already approved with some amendments. In addition to that, you already know how the CEFP and what the SBA requires on it. We don't need to belabor those points. We already know what type of items have to be in it. And we know about the teams that were created in 2019 to start the process for the CEFP. So in this presentation, you'll see items in blue. That tells you items in this 10-year CEFP that have already been done or already have motion started on them. Items in green requires the board to vote for the amendment. So when talking about Hinton area, the city indicated cooperation on the one-way and repaving as well as the sidewalk. We still do not have an updated information from the city, but they did commit to helping us on that. The city is tearing down a house for extra parking, and that will be our parking for Hinton area. It's the one at the base of Elk Knob. Is that road there? And for the exterior lighting, there's an RFP out that is due on the 30th for electrician, electrical service provider. And in that RFP states stuff like lifts and stuff that because we can't service our own pole lights because we don't have any way to get to them. So if we do an RFP like this, we don't have to bid out every job. We have a blanket RFP that we put out for electric service provider. And in the green, we're not talking about a new gym indoor play area. We're talking about adding a dining hall to the existing structure. This will free up multi-purpose room currently used as the gym, cafeteria, and auditorium. Hinton area, when you're dealing with COVID, all of these cohorts were in the same space. They have no dedicated space for gymnasium. They have no dedicated space for dining or auditorium. So any large-scale gatherings have a difficult place to take. So adding a dedicated dining area all around relieves scheduling issues and allows them to use that space more effectively. Jumping Branch doesn't have any amendments, but in the spirit of this 10-year agreement, our 10-year plan, I want you guys to know what's already started this summer. Air conditioners have been replaced in the classrooms. The interactive playground, the loo, has been installed, and the power has been placed in there for it. And the outdoor freezer and cooler, the electricity has been ran, and the pad should have started today by the contractor, and we're just waiting on the unit to be delivered. For Talcott, there is an amendment item in green. Instead of renovating, instead of adding a new gym as was listed in the presentation here, we're renovating the current gym for use as a health wellness center, assemblies, and related arts. All that terminology is in there because we have to put in the educational plan of the CFP, which you do not see here. We have to put information on how it supports the goals outlined by the SBA. Also, there is the RFP for the electrical service provider will cover the parking light upgrades and fixtures that need to be fixed for the lighting. So that's already started. And for the high school, we've already have the tree quotes. I still need to get one for that. Surplus sale has already completed. Most of the stuff's out of the building, and the field house updates are in progress. Doors replaced, locks, leaks fixed. We're working on a mini split AC to reduce humidity. The RFP has been issued and is due for the 30th for the auxiliary building, which will be called the indoor practice facility after it is completed.
Can you let them know what trees we're looking at removing right now?
Yeah.
That way you guys can understand what's going on out there.
So I requested quotes for the tree removal and the stump grinding on tree. It's at the entrance at the railroad side. There's
The one that's dead.
mostly dead at least, as well as the large pin oak that's in the center of the courtyard between the C building and the regular building. So between Votech and the regular building, there's a large pin oak. It's a beautiful tree. We hate to cut it down, but it is outgrown. It's outgrown its area that it can coexist with our buildings without clogging up our drainage. And there's a locust tree in the parking lot that will not only take out our telecom lines, but it could potentially fall on a student's automobile. It needs to come down. It's already pretty rotten and it's very tall. So the quote that we're requesting is for those 3 trees to be removed. There's another pin oak that's part of the SBA project. I went ahead and got quotes for McKinley that I'll pass along to them for taking that pin oak out as well. It's even larger than the one that's in the courtyard. It will leave us with 1 of the large pin oaks remaining out of the 3 that's currently on that campus. Any questions about the trees?
No.
If somebody had a mill that they didn't have to worry about nails,
A lot of lumber.
a lot of lumber there.
Be good
Such
for
things as being able
our,
to worry about nails.
be good for our CTE program if they had their sawmill set up. And if you cut it up high enough,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to worry
They're
about it.
just so big around, I don't know if they could handle the,
They're
I don't know.
big trees, man.
What diameter are we talking?
uh,
Get your arm around.
I mean, are they bigger than 24
Oh,
inches
yes.
diameter?
oh yes.
36?
You can wrap your arm
They're
around.
in the 30s to 40s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably.
The problem is with the one oak tree is it's in between the 2 buildings and it constantly litters on the, if we're talking about maintenance in the future with our facilities, that all needs cleaned out, but, you know.
Yeah,
It's dangerous because it could fall, whoever does the work is gonna obviously be fully insured, but you got a lot underneath them, but we'd like to get that done before any students come on campus, so we're trying to get through that RFP as quickly as possible with getting 3 quotes.
And some other pieces that were part of the CEFP plan is we're 95% complete on our board office. Now we just got to move our stuff and get our telecom stuff set up. And we're 100% on moving the students to the high school. And now the heavy lifting starts on the actual construction. We have the RFP that's out for the annex project. It's due on the 30th as well. And that will add space for Hinton area for STEAM, nursing, and Title I. So a lot of these things that's in this 10-year plan, we're full steam ahead. So the green items were the amendments that need to be approved by the board. The blue was just status items of what's in the 10-year CFP. And after you guys approve that, if you guys decide to do so, we then need to file the paperwork with the state to get on their agenda.
Can you go back to the previous screen?
One more or that one?
What's that last sentence?
The last sentence you said?
Yes.
This will provide additional classrooms in Hinton area for the incoming jumping branch. That was,
That
In,
was a
in,
recommendation.
in your
that's just a recommendation. What he's saying is, we're just getting that annex ready for all three elementaries.
So in your CFP plan, one of your options of the two that you approved originally was closing Jumping Branch and moving those students. That is not what this annex project is doing. It's doing the first part of this option here, in which you are utilizing the annex for Hinton area elementary for STEAM, nursing, and Title I.
Do we have the authority to strike that statement?
Just,
You can't strike it because you all agree on the
Yeah.
two options. Just because it's on there doesn't mean you do it.
You don't have to do any of it.
You don't
Yeah.
have to do any of it.
just, I was just gonna say for clarification for anyone watching, when that 10-year plan was approved, closing Jumping Branch has been in the past 2
30
and
years.
probably 3 10-year plans.
It has been, it is the
Just
last 30.
because it's in that plan doesn't mean it has to happen. And obviously, we are still proceeding with updating Jumping Branch with electrical and with the cooler, the walk-in cooler.
Mhm.
With the students moving out of the middle school to the high school complex, I think that gives Jumping Branch a little more viability just
Yes, it does.
because the need for that space. So
Those are good points.
anyone who's watching, I just want them to realize, and for you pointing this out, this doesn't mean Jumping Branch is closing. It just was recommended by the architects and engineers as one of our options.
And all three elementaries, you know the old boardroom that you guys used to occupy for meetings? That's gonna be a STEM lab, so kids will be bused from the other two elementaries to work with Miss Schaefer on STEM activities. Maybe they do that and they schedule it to have it that month or a week or 2 weeks, but those are hands-on activities that those kids can come and, for lack of better words, have a good time failing or playing with items with STEM-related activities. So that's gonna be utilized by all three, but Hinton area will have the closest proximity for title for services there, but that STEM lab is in that building and it'll be used for all three elementaries. So just want everybody to know,
So,
but that's good clarification.
President Duncan, on the note of Jumping Branch, for anyone watching, this board has invested a considerable amount of money over the summer in Jumping Branch. For instance, we've replaced all of the classroom air conditioners. The loo itself was about $22,000. The outdoor freezer and cooler, after the pad and the electrical part, were $40,000+. So we're putting money in Jumping Branch, so that actions speak pretty loud in our commitment to that school.
And in addition to that, I want everybody to know that we are planning and we will be receiving COVID funding that's going to help us do an update or upgrade or remodel the whole HVAC and electrical system in that school. And then we're going to use county money on the roofing when we get to that point. Right?
Those are all projections that we're trying to do at this point in time. Yeah, because
So-
it's gonna need a roof and so is the CTE building. Those are the two roofs that need to be replaced.
I do have a
This board is
couple
committed to all that, and so I just want to make it emphatic and direct. This board is not voting to close Jumping Branch Elementary. It is our intention for it to be a viable, ongoing school for many years to come, and we're putting the money into it to do it. So, go ahead, Mr. Lester, I just want to make that point.
I just do have a couple questions. So when you were talking about the work at the old former Talcott Gym, you mentioned that it was gonna be Health and Wellness Center. You had a couple other options. Will it be able to be used as a gymnasium? with the work that's being done.
Yeah, we had engineers already in. They looked at some of the structures. They also had an air quality person from the state. What was his name again?
Preston. Something. Preston.
There's a lot of money that'll have to go into the HVAC
Yeah.
because you can't use the fan system that's currently in there. You actually had to have moisture control and
Electrical needs to be upgraded.
an electrical upgraded. The
80
floor will
hours
stay the
more.
same. We're not going to change the floor. The floor really won't be a competition grade floor
Right.
because there's some unevenness in it, but the floor is beautiful as it stands, and you can still do any of the type of stuff that you would normally do at the elementary level at the floor.
So to answer
Mr.
your
Lester, I
question-
want to make a correction there. In 1969, the floor was the exact same condition, and I competed on it, so it'll be all right in the future. But anyway, not to knock you down, Mr. Lester, it's just I had to bring that up.
Well, what they're calling them now is wellness centers, and they feel better about calling them that. But yes, PE classes, that's a classroom for PE, but it's also a classroom for fine arts, assemblies, and even the community to use it. Because if you're having HVAC, you got hot and cold air. So if there is an emergency situation like happened a few years ago, flooding, that will be a safe place for people to use, because that's what we want to use it for. It's a community center.
Sure.
But with our fine arts, you've got a beautiful stage there. You can put on a whole play and fill the whole place, because right now, with that multi-purpose room, it's not purposeful, because if you have to have a few people watch at a time, that's not a stage to really be on. But man, to have that nice stage there and to renovate that place and get it back to its glory days, I think it's worth a shot.
So the building, as we were talking about, they did poke around and look at the structure of the building. They think the structure's sound on face value. Again, they haven't done any extensive looking other than they came to the site and had the custodian move some stuff off the facade of the building to see the construction, as well as the windows would go back to being windows instead of having it seems like it's T111 or something that's over them, and the radiators would have to be taken out. You would have to have a fully. The good news is it's not leaking, and the roof's good, and we've already moved part of the building off, had it demolished that would not be used, and that's been cleaned up. So the structure seems to be viable. So we're in our ARP plan. The $1.2 million was set aside in that ARP money, and we requested the state allow us to do that, and that's why you have that update in the CEFP.
Now, you also mentioned the field house at Summers County High School.
Yes, sir.
Which building is the field house?
Field house would be the one at the football field, at the football locker rooms, the middle school.
Is
high
that the one
schools.
under the
Yes.
gymnasium, under the bleachers?
Yes.
Or is that the one,
The auxiliary separate, the field
Right.
house is under the bleachers.
But when you say auxiliary, you're talking about the metal building?
Yeah, the metal building's separate of
So
the
what-
field house.
What
is
do
under
we
the
refer
bleachers.
to, so we're the visitors locker room?
Where the high school football staff, locker rooms, shower
So that's
rooms,
under the-
that's the field house.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And there's a moisture issue in there.
Okay.
So one of the easiest ways would be to put in a mini split to where it is taking that moisture out of the air, as well as if you do the fans, you're going to invite the cold air in the wintertime, and then you got a lot of plumbing in there. So that's what we're looking at. Right now, they're having to run dehumidifiers to get the moisture out of the building.
You're chasing your tail there.
Yeah.
You are.
Being on the river.
Yeah, you're just chasing.
By the
your tail.
way, it's been chased for 40 years. It's gonna come to an end.
Well, and Mr. Woods, I know he has led the painting scheme out there. If you go back there, it's starting to look like there's school spirit and pride going on. I know the boys have been helping out, and that's pretty exciting that we're gonna have a facility start to look more like a college campus. I want it to look a little bit nicer for people when they come in, and we're addressing the bleachers too on the other side.
We need to publicly thank Mr. Woods for the artwork and the painting.
Mhm.
I can tell you, I was here when that building was moved into, and I can tell you the building didn't look that good when it was moved into. It's absolutely outstanding, and The coaches are inside, painting the inside, and they have other upgrades for the inside. So that's going to be a very nice area very soon when we get it finished. Anything else, Mr. Lester?
Mr. Angel, do you have any more questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the sports practice facility, there is space allocated for archery. So, and we were down there this past Sunday doing measurements, and they had the concrete contractor in. So things are going to move fairly quickly after the 30th. I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised.
When we were there, though, we also had a plumber there too.
Yeah.
You know,
Is
we
there
got a plumber.
additional concrete work being done inside or out?
They're going, so the most cost-effective way to put the bathrooms in, because of where the stuff's roughed in and how it was roughed in, is they're going to cut that out and re-pour the concrete where the bathroom is. And I asked them to slope it
Yeah.
to where it can be hosed out, and I asked for the walls to not be drywall, but I want it to be the material that we can get wet. And so in the event, we can just seal the concrete or paint it, and then the inside can be hosed out and it will drain itself. And it'll have 2 stalls and a handicap accessible.
And a sidewalk to the restrooms too.
Sounds like good planning, Mr. Lester. The board appreciates that. Anything else on this? Superintendent Warble, are you making a recommendation to us that this board approve this amendment you presented us to CFP?
Yes, we have 2 amendments. One is at Talcott and one is at Hinton area. So they're one and the same. You just need one vote to approve both of those.
Okay, the chair would move that this board approve the amendment to CEFP plan regarding the Talcott Gymnasium and the
Hinton area elementary
Hinton area
cafeteria.
cafeteria annex. And there is a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the floor of the chair, second by Mr. McBride, that this board approve the amendment to CEFP plan as presented to us by the superintendent regarding the Talcott Gym and the cafeteria seating annex to Hinton Area School. Is there any discussion? Okay. I would just add that these were plans that the central office staff has come up with in conjunction of working with the engineers, and also this amendment is required that we do this by the State Board of Education. So that's my, yes,
One clarification, funding for this is through COVID money.
both.
For
Absolutely.
both projects.
And just to help clarify for anybody else out there, one more time, we presented this to the state on the 28th. Their recommendations that came back to us were to do this. But when we did that, we also had to present to you guys, gave you a PowerPoint, and then placed it on the board, the school website. It is still there, and there are comments that people can say how we're spending this money. So far, I think everybody must like what we're all doing, because we haven't heard any feedback. But this is the best way to spend this money coming to us with this stimulus money, if you will. Because you're not gonna get this ever again. I just don't see that happening.
So posted on the website is not only how it was presented to the board and with the YouTube video, it has a form to enter your comments and feedback. We do require you to identify yourself. You can also see the PDF of the presentation that we presented to the board and to the SBA on the website. So we've been transparent through this whole process. And those projects,
You're going too fast there, quit looking.
And will this get archived as well in a location?
Yeah.
We
the
can reference
YouTube
it
video
later?
is permanently up there.
Well,
And this,
and you have board minutes to reflect that. We're talking about that though.
On behalf of the board, Mr. Warble, this board would like to thank you and all of your staff for the judicious way in which you have followed the law and used all this COVID money from the federal government to repair facilities as per the guidelines and tags with this money, and very judicious use, and we appreciate your frugality there in every way that you can. All right, we have a motion on the floor. So the chair would call for a vote on the question presented to us, and again, motion was to approve the amendment presented to us by the superintendent regarding a CEFP plan for the Talcott Gymnasium and Hinton area cafeteria seating. We had a motion and a second. We've had any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, 5 votes in the affirmative. Superintendent Warble, this board has approved the amendment to the CEFP plan as mandated to us by the State Board of Education. That brings us to item 6, approval of bills. I see you have before you a bill.
Yeah.
A bill. And so, Chair would entertain a motion.
Is this for?
What is this for, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, this is, we're all done for the new board meeting, or the new board meeting, the new board office.
Okay.
So he's all done, and he's just wanting his final payment, cause he's completed everything. We did get a certificate from the fire marshal that we can have occupancy, and that means the fire marshal is okay with all the things that we had to do for that change order to make it, fireproof with that 2-hour fire meeting.
Electrical systems.
All, it's all, we're all done. As a matter of fact, after the board meeting tonight, if you want to, you all are more than welcome, I'm gonna go down there and check it out, but Scott told me the wax is all done. It looks like a board office, and I thought tonight, if you guys want to, obviously, it's your call if you wanna swing by and check it out, because tomorrow, we're gonna start moving in there and, try to occupy it as soon as we can. I've talked to Coach Evans. I have some football players. They're ready to help us at 8 o'clock on Friday. And I'm gonna pay them with some pizza. And then they're gonna go help out with the water festival after they eat. So these boys are very busy, and we'll probably be thanking them at a board meeting for their volunteerism. I don't know the boys. I just said, get me a dozen. I want 6 at one location, 6 at the other. And they'll keep loading the box truck and keep getting it out, because the quicker we get out of the Hinton Area Annex building, which that's gonna be called an annex, they can get in there and start cleaning up, because the fire marshal has told us exactly what he wants.
No sprinkler system?
No sprinkler system.
And that is due to the fact that the cinder block construction allows for a burn rate to be slow enough that we would not have to have a sprinkler system. So if it hadn't have been cinder block, we would be talking soon. So-
I will make a motion to pay this bill.
And I do want to note,
Guess what was asked?
I'll say.
I do want to note it came in under the requested amount.
Again, we appreciate that, Mr. Lester. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. McBride, second by Mr. Brogan, that this board approve paying of the bill to Prince Management, which pays us up on the new board office building, which is an excellent utilization of existing resources, and we've done a lot there to make sure that gymnasium will continue to be safe. So, all in favor?
92.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, 5 votes in the affirmative, we approve the bill. All right, now, before we adjourn, let me see a show of hands. How many people want to see the building out there?
We
All right.
can't all go.
Well, what do you,
That's
I
fine.
can go at a later time. I'll wait and go when
So
there's.
here's what we can do.
how about, you wanna
Any
come
two
by
members-
tomorrow?
Okay.
You wanna come by tomorrow or Friday? We'll be there too.
Any 2 members that wants to go out there at a time, you may go see, because we're gonna adjourn this meeting, and we're not gonna violate the Open Meetings Act, so 3 of us can't be out there at one time, okay? So, Vice President Farley, you're on.